So welcome back. I have a bunch of mods to show you guys. I think you're gonna like these. The first one is volumetric reshade, and it's probably my favorite mod I've ever used. Look at the water. It is 100 times better than vanilla. It also makes everything so contrasty. Things get dark when you think they should get dark. Like for instance, you can see the back of me is super dark, but the front of me isn't. And this mod just continues to surprise me. It creates some of the most beautiful and cinematic looks that you can get with this game. Like, look at the absolute difference. One of these is vanilla and one of them is not. And I'm sure you can tell that it's pretty obvious which one isn't. It looks so insanely good. Everything is super configurable, and at any point you can change the looks. Like this slider right here makes it feel very warm and has this awesome brightness to it. Also, something like the water, which is a reason why I would download it on its own, is also extremely configurable as well. So if you don't like mine, and you think it looks a little bit too clear, a little bit too blue, anything like that, you can definitely change that. Like here you go, we got some murky water. We want it to be a more green, we can do that. Want to make it super flat? That is also something that you can do. So you can mess around with it, get it just right, get it to exactly how you like it. Now I showed off another shader mod at one point, and I thought it looked pretty good. However, it had one big flaw, and it was inside buildings, and it made lights look incredibly bright, and everything glowed like crazy, to where it looked like the sun was in that building over there. However, this mod does not have that issue. It still gets incredibly dark. It's just the right mix. Also, I had to mention, it works insanely well with the Farseer mod. It blends so incredibly well, and unless you zoomed in, you would never know that that actually isn't rendered, and it just brings this world alive. So I hope you guys will give this one a try. It is too good to be slept on. The next two mods I'm gonna group together, and it's Simple HUD Clock and Status HUD Continued. They are incredibly nice. I'm sure many of you are using it right now. The Simple HUD is pretty basic, but does exactly what you need it to do. You can see on the top left, it shows what season it is, the month, the date, the year, what time it is, the current rift activity. If there was a temporal storm coming, it would let you know and give you a timer. A lot of that can be found in your character menu. However, now you don't have to open it up every time you want to see what time it is. And with the added bonus of the wind and storm warning, it is definitely worth a try. Now, Status HUD Continued does a lot of what the HUD clock does, and in my opinion, I like it a little bit better, and it's less in your face. I know I've said this so many times, but I'm a HUD minimalist, so I think the less is better. This does all the things that the other one did, and a little bit more. You can see it all on the bottom of my screen. You can see how my armor's doing. You can see the wind speed. You can see the direction of the wind. You can see the temperature, what time it is. But it also has one really cool function. There's a little house icon by my offhand, and when we go into buildings, it will tell you if it's a room. I've ripped open my doors here, which means that this is not a room. That's why it didn't change. But if I go into a room that I know is a room, you can see that there's a house icon, which implies that it is a room, but there's a sun over it, which is telling me that this is a greenhouse. But if we go into my cellar, you can see it's a little square now, and it's telling me that this is in fact a cellar, which is incredibly nice, and I'm sure a ton of people would appreciate that. And I'll probably be using this from now on. The next mod is so incredibly cool, and it's called Compost Tweaks. I'm sure many of you have tried to make compost and realized how much it requires, on top of how long it takes, then to get little in return. This one fixes all of that. You can throw onto a barrel, it will double the compost, and now it only takes 5 days to seal. However, that's not all it does. It allows you to make compost with more stuff, like thatch, which turns into 32 compost in 10 days, or dry grass, which does the same. You can even use soil, which gives you little return, but that's so incredibly cheap. And you can even use medium fertility soil. It gives you a lot of options, and again, is something I'm going to be using. The next mod is very subtle, and it might not be for everybody, but it's for me. I'm going to have to turn up the volume here, and I'm going to have to stop talking for a second, but give this a listen. Isn't that so cool? It's called Cave Symphony. It adds some really creepy sounds to all caves, and I swear it gives like reverb in here as well, and it makes caves so incredibly spooky, and trust me, it didn't even need help to do that. But yeah, that's all it does. I had to show you guys that, but it's really simple. So on to the next one. Now my animals get very hungry, and it kind of sucks just feeding them the same thing every day. If only there was a way to diversify their diets. Well, you can. with diverse diets. All it allows you to do is now you can feed your animals a whole bunch of different foods, including fish, thatch, poultry, bushmeat, eggs, termites, and red meat. It's really just that simple. You get so many more options, and I don't see why you wouldn't use this. However, this mostly works just for the large troughs, as I can't get any of these into small troughs. So do be warned, you're not going to be able to feed eggs to your chickens, and we're just going to have to live with that. Now, I've been pretty outspoken about me not enjoying the elk that much because of how difficult he is to control, and trees being one of the main issues. So we have a mod to fix that. It's called Mount Destroys Leaves, and it's really as simple as that. When you're out and about and there's a bunch of leaves, you can just ride into it, and depending on your speed, it might start to destroy some of the leaves. However, it's not guaranteed, but it works sometimes. As you can see, this is just regular leaves, and you can walk through it. But here's the branchy leaves, and you can't. If we throw 2 of these down, again, it can't just ride through every single leaf. It can only destroy a couple at a time. Say that's in our way, and we're just trying to run through them. You can. Destroys it just like that. It's a small tweak, but I'm sure it'll make your guys' life a lot easier. Now, there's always been something that's bothered me, and it has to do with this house. Pine logs are super cool. However, coming from Minecraft, I've always been really big into spruce logs, and there is no real alternative to that in this game. But with spruced up, we can do exactly that. It's really simple, and it just adds spruce to the game. It does replace pine, so you might not enjoy that, but this is a sacrifice that you have to make. It can also add the planks, which is the thing that I care about the most. I would use this on pretty much everything. On top of that, it also does replace some of the other blocks, like the pine beams that I have going on right here. And something that I don't like as much is it messes with my roofs. So if you plan on using pine roofs, this might not be for you, which is unfortunate because I have a lot of pine roofs. But yeah, you can see right here, it looks like spruce, but then pine on top, and I'm not a big fan of that, not gonna lie. But having these in the game is just so incredibly cool. Now, the next thing that always bothered me with this house was these maple planks. I think that they're pretty cool. However, they have that awful green tint to them, and I think it's a tad bit ugly, but there's a way for us to get rid of the green. And we can do that with Green Be Gone. You can see that the maple has changed greatly. In my opinion, it makes maple wood look so much better. It's like a mix between oak and birch, and it looks so much more classier. And I gotta assume that some of you are like me and really appreciate this mod. This next mod is called Darce's Drifters, and it is incredibly cool. It remodels all the drifters and makes them so much more scarier. They are also noticeably larger, and it also affects their hitboxes, so it shouldn't cause too much jankiness. And dude, this mod is so incredibly cool. These are so much more terrifying, and I would not want to run into any of these. So if you are looking to make the drifters a little bit more worrying, go give this one a try. Now, I've always been so intrigued into building with a bunch of aged blocks. However, they're pretty hard to obtain, and certainly not in bulk. So if I wanted to build a big mega project out of them, it just would not be feasible. However, with the mod Aged, you can. You add some vinegar acid to whatever block you're trying to age, and you leave it into a barrel, and you'll get your aged block. Alternatively, if you use Better Ruins, you can just get the blueprint. So there is alternatives, or you can use both. And a mod that goes extremely well with that is called Stained Beams. It adds a ton of dark beams, which I just know that I will love, and I'll be keeping this for the main series, just because I've been asking for dark beams for so long, and this gives me exactly what I needed. All you do, just like the aged blocks, is you add the beam and a material to the barrel. In this case, to get the regular stain support beams, you would add some weak tannin. Then for the darker one, you add the stained support beams to the weak tannin once more, and you get the dark ones. Then to get the black beams, you can add the dark beams to some strong tannin to get black beams, or you can add the regular stain beams to some black dye, or any of the other beams with some black dye in a barrel. I think that's all completely reasonable, and it gives you some incredibly nice beams to work with. Trust me, if I had this earlier, you wouldn't see pine beams on all my stuff, that is for sure. So if you want some more building options, give it a try. Now, if you guys have seen the main series, you'll know that I pretty much killed all the animals in the first year that I was here, and this place has been desolate ever since. In about 300 hours, I've basically seen like 3 goats and maybe a bear or 2. No chickens, no deer, no moose, and I have a cow mod, so no cows as well. Which is why my barn has barely any animals in it, and only recently have I been able to fill it. And I did it with this. This mod is called Animal Cages, and it allows you to use these cages to pick up most animals, and you can bring them back to your base. We have two of them here, a medium cage and a small cage. And some people don't like the mechanics to this, and I do understand it. However, I think it's a necessary evil, especially if you run into the issue that I was having. But how it works, and you can go up to the animal that you're trying to get, and you just keep whacking them. So you can shoot them with an arrow or so to try to lower their health and run up to them. You hit them, and now we got him in the cage. Just like that, we have a cow. And we can transport him to wherever we want to go. And when we want to release him, we just break the cage. And he's back. So go give it a try. The next mod is called imersiveorecrush. When you want to break a part of an ore, you gotta place your hammer above it, and you'll be able to break it. However, no more. To break it apart, you need to place it on the ground, and you take your hammer, and you just smash away. For any of you that really want the immersion, you got this. And now you can see we have a bunch of nuggets. This works for all the ores in the game, not just the iron, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm very tempted to use this one myself. How could you not like that? Now, I have a couple of food mods for you guys. However, the big one is expanded foods. I have a couple I need to show you. That way we can get into it. The first one is stonebake oven mod. It's really quite simple. You get this little oven right here, and you can see it says heat source. And you connect it with a heat distribution source. This one is a T-junction, which means that everywhere where you can see the little holes on the side will connect to an oven, which is this. It's called a baking space. Since there's a hole on that side, and this is connected to it, it means it can receive heat all the way from over here. And I can add one right here if I wanted to. And that's 2 ovens. If we really wanted to get crazy with it, we could do something like this. Add a ton of ovens. And there's a couple more that we can work with. Like, we have an end cap and a corner. The end cap is pretty self-explanatory, and it stops the line of ovens that we have here. And the corner allows us to do something like this. So to use it, you throw some firewood into the oven, then we light it. And now you can see that this is receiving heat, and so will this one, and these two right here. What you would do is you can throw your stuff onto here. Like right now I have meat, but you could do bread or pies. Stuff that would require an oven, but some of the stuff that would require a fire pit can also go onto here. With that being said, you can't throw a pot onto here, so it's not like you can make stews with this. Be warned. The next one requires us to have a fire pit. Normally, to cook a stew, we would need to throw a cooking pot onto it. But this mod is called metal cooking pots. It adds a big new pot to the game, and you can see here it can cook some large portions. This can hold 24, which means that one of these pots can fill up 6 entire crocs. And I think that's just a wonderful adjustment, and I'm surprised that isn't in the game already. Now, the next mod is something that you guys have been asking me to use forever. In all my other modded videos, there's been multiple comments on this mod alone, and it's expanded foods. I obviously can't show you everything it can do right now. That would require like multiple hour-long videos, which we're not about to do. Let me just show you the handbook real quick. When you type in expanded, look at all of this. This is all new. If you download this mod, you will never be out of new foods to cook. So much to do, and you can get some pretty crazy combinations out of this. Like for instance, look at the gelatin. When eaten, it gives 200 satiety, but 3 HP. And what you could do is you could make a pie, fill it up with this gelatin, then pick it up, place it down, and because of the stonebake oven mod, this will get cooking right away. No need to place an oven, and it just makes this so much simpler. I cannot recommend that mod enough. Now, once the pie is done, we can place it down, cut it up, and each of the slices will now give us 6 HP. That is rivaling some of the best healing in the entire game. On top of it being food, is giving about 640 satiety on top of the healing. And there's ways to get that even higher. Like, if we drop one of the new items on the table, there is a mixing bowl here, which we can combine some salt with some flour and yeast portion, which requires some dried cranberries. We need to get some berries and just leave them around. It'll slowly dry them out, which will give us dried cranberries. we're going to be using it to turn it into yeast. For that, we're going to need a barrel and a bucket of water to fill this up. We add a bunch of dry berries to it. It'll turn into 10 liters of yeast. Once that's done, you'll get some yeast, which you can come over to the mixing bowl, add some flour and salt, and you can get yeast starter. We just hold right click on this. We get it turned into yeast starter. So with the yeast starter, we can get some water and add some flour to here, and you can see it's making some dough. Now you might be wondering what's the difference between these two. And you can see that they can't stack because this one is special. If we get it down, you can see it already has plus 3 HP. And we can add the gelatin to it, and it's 27 HP now. Let's finish this. We need a couple more dough. There we go. Let's put the topper on, and now it's 30 HP. We'll get it cooked real quick. Drop it down, cut it up, and now it gives 7.5 HP each, plus 805 satiety. If that's not insane, I don't know what is. And what I've shown you here isn't even 1% of all the cool stuff that you can do with it. You will never run out of things to do with this mod, so give it a try. The next mod is also insanely cool. It's called Tankards and Goblets, and it just adds some more cups to the game. I really like it. Not only are they functional so you can drink out of, and could go insanely well with expanded foods, however, for decorating, this is priceless. Now this mod is truly incredible. It is called Vanilla Variants, and what it does is so simple. However, it is crazy it's not already in the game. This is just a small amount of the items, but just know that there's so many more. And a lot of the furniture, the chests, stuff like the fruit press, can now sport a different look for the items that are used to make it. So if you want an ebony chest, there you go. You really want a purple chest? Well, you can get one. There's a crazy amount of stuff that you can do, like the chairs, palisades, the shelves, the wooden pan, and need I say more? This one adds a crazy amount of stuff, and I think everybody can get behind it. Now, speaking of chests, I have a mod for you. It's called Extra Chests, and what it allows you to do is that you can upgrade chests all the way from copper to steel, and it allows them to hold a lot more. Like this chest right here can hold more than a trunk. That's just so cool. Unfortunately, they don't have this for trunks, but as you can see, these are pretty great on their own. The upgrade path is pretty cool, and it allows you to do this. See, right now it's bronze, now it's iron, now it's steel. They require a decent bit of resources, obviously, the 4 boards, and a plate of whatever you're trying to upgrade it to, which I think makes this pretty balanced, and it's a pretty good reward for a decent bit of work. So thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you liked some of the ones I showed off today. There was a lot of cool ones to pick from, and there's a lot more to show you guys in the future. So that being said, thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you next time.